name is Gavin Evans, and this is my review of Bojack Horseman. This is a review of the entire show. I will be reviewing each and every individual season later, but this will be a spoiler-free review. And when I first started this show, I didn't know what to think about it. The pilot episode isn't great, but my brothers told me to keep watching it. A friend of mine told me to keep watching it. And after getting through a few more episodes, I was instantly hooked. There's a horse named Bojack Horseman, and he's a drunk and a washed up actor. And at first it's like, oh, look at all the funny hijinks he gets himself into. But then, just moment by moment, they drop these darker and more emotional moments. And it just slowly eases you into just how dark and how emotional this show will become. When you look back on the first season after seeing the entire series, it just goes from 0 to 100 by the end, and the way that it's paced itself perfectly throughout is just handled masterfully. A few years ago, everybody was going crazy for that show 13 Reasons Why, and everybody hates it now, and rightfully so. But everybody was just like, oh, this is such a great representation of mental illness, and I never got that. This show is though. It's on display. You understand why characters are the way that they are, whether it's their childhood or things that have happened to them in life, and why they've caused them to be the person that they are today. And the show never asks you to root for them. It just has it on display, and you can judge them as they are. There are no good people or bad people in this show. There's people who do good things and people who do bad things, and people who do both good and bad things. And it's up to your own judgment if they're a good person or not. And that's what's so great about this show. It doesn't give you any easy answers. It's up to the audience to come up with their own take on each and every character. There are some characters that I thought I would hate from beginning to end of this show, and at an eventual point, even they become humanized. And at no point do they justify what they've done, but you understand how they got to that point, and you feel bad for them, you feel sad for them. And there are characters that I loved at the start that by the end, I'm just like, I don't know if I like you anymore. There's just so much depth and nuance on display, and that is the kind of writing that I really gravitate myself towards. The characters are well defined and consistent throughout. Bojack Horseman, is he a good person? No, by the end that's pretty clear, but you still can't help but root for him. You sympathize with him. And where on that, I love him in Arrested Development. I always thought that I would always see him as Joe. It's a shame we never got a fourth season, but as soon as I was a few episodes into this show, I was just like, nope, Will Arnett is Bojack Horseman forever and always, and it's some of his best work. He's absolutely amazing in this show, and there's one episode called Free Troll, which is just on a whole other level. I also love Diane Nugent. She's well defined, and watching her go through many trials throughout this show, I always felt like they did a good job of pushing her farther and farther, and who starts off as a strong, hard-working character, and some of the directions they take her is just absolutely heartbreaking. But I just thought that there was so much great writing behind her, and Alison Brie did a fantastic job. Mr. Peanut Butter, I also love. I love his optimism, I love how joyful he is, and I love how he acts like an actual dog in human form. Paul F. Tompkins does a great job voicing him, but I do think there's a lot more complexities behind his characters than people give him credit for. Just the fact that he's such a people pleaser that he can't be alone ever, I think there's a lot of depth there, and I think it's on display really well. Then there's Todd, who is typically consistently the funny sidekick character, and he does a good job with that. I think Aaron Paul does a great job voicing him, but there's a few emotional moments with him that hit really hard, and I love how, I don't want to spoil it, but there's a few things that happen with his character that never gets resolved, and I think that element was fantastic. And then there's Princess Caroline, voiced by Amy Sedaris, who does a fantastic job. At first, I was like, I don't know about this character, but eventually they won me over on her, and they gave her lots of depth, lots of emotion, and I love the directions they took her character. So the 5 main cast just do a fantastic job, but all the other side characters that come into play are also great. Whether it's Neil McBeal, the Navy SEAL, that'll never get old to me, or it's Hollyhock, or it's Gina or Anna Spanakopita, just everyone who comes into the show is a fantastic side character. So the way that they develop and write each and every character is just top notch. This show is also hilarious. Just consistently throughout each and every episode, I'm just laughing all the time. Whether it's a joke in the background or a piece of dialogue or just whatever, this show is just hilarious non-stop. But that doesn't dampen the dark and emotional moments, which this show has plenty of. By the time I got to the 6th season, I felt sick to my stomach. Like, this show, I don't think people actually are prepared for just how dark and emotional this show is. There's just a few moments where it just hits you, and it hits you hard, and you feel icky inside. And I just love that about it. There's just quite a few moments that just completely broke me. And even when you're going to watch, when I review my seasons, I've already filmed them and edited them. There's just a few moments where I'm just trying to talk about them without getting emotional. But it's very difficult to, because there was just so much. Like, this show is really emotional. Like, I'm saying it now so you're prepared for when you watch it. This show is dark and emotional, and it paces you and eases you into it so perfectly. One of my favorite TV shows ever is Seinfeld. It's just hilarious, the cast is great, and from start to almost finish, it's just perfection. But I've never liked the last episode because I just never felt like it was on. It's trying to make you ask yourself, why do you like Jerry and his friends? You've watched them be a bad person time and time again. And I never felt like that was on. I felt like that whole idea just came out of nowhere, and it wasn't that kind of show. This show does something very similar. It does what the Seinfeld finale was trying to do, and it pulls it off perfectly. Just the moments where you're rooting for the main character, and then you just stop yourself and ask yourself why you are. It's challenging stuff in that, and I love how challenging this show is. It doesn't give you any easy answers, and that's just phenomenal writing. The animation's also really great in this show. I guess some people, like my parents, can't get past the fact that lots of the characters are animals that talk and act like humans. I guess that's a big no-no for lots of people, but I thought they handled it really well, and it provides some nice humor. I love lots of music used in the show, like the opening intro and just how we see Bojack going through the motions and how the background constantly changes. I always watched the main intro and I loved it, and I love the end credit song. Back in the 90s, I was in a very famous TV show. Do, do, do. And it's a very light and happy song, and when it comes after a dark and emotional moment, the contrast is apparent and it hits you really hard. And I will say, as fantastic as this show consistently is, it ends on its best possible note. This show progressively gets better, and the last few episodes are the show at its best. Just as the credits were rolling on the last episode, I don't know if I've ever just lingered as hard as I did in that moment. I just couldn't help but think about where the characters were at the start of the show and where they were now and how the relationships changed. And it made me think about my own relationships. And it just hits on a very real and very hard note. They nailed the ending. It's a perfect ending in every possible way. And this entire show is just pure perfection. It asks such big questions about life, like what's the purpose of it, and how do you find happiness in this life, and how do you get over stuff that you've done that you hate yourself for, and how do you just overcome past guilt, past regrets, and just pass off of stuff that has happened to you, and how do you move on from that. There's just so much on display here, and it's explored in such fascinating, compelling ways that really fleshes out each and every single character. The way they humanize each character is something that's just top notch. It's constantly hilarious, but it's also so dark and emotional, and there are so many moments that just broke me. This show has some of the best writing I've ever witnessed. It's just brilliant. I absolutely love this show, so I'm going to go ahead and give Bojack Horseman, the entire TV show, a 10 out of 10. It's that good. If you haven't watched it, watch it. It is that good. But have you watched Bojack Horseman? What did you think about it? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you like, make sure you comment, make sure you subscribe. Stay tuned for some more videos soon, and Gavin out.